Hello, my loves. Hello, hello, hello. My name is Dustina. This is Spiritual Boujee Astrology, and we're going to take a look at the astrological transits of November 18th to November 24th. Now, before I do any type of recap or breakdown, just a quick little reminder for everybody that I am running a special on all of my sessions until the end of the year. Everybody's getting new client pricing. What does that mean if we go over relationships, if we're going over your personal chart, karmic healing, anything going on with your family, business, financial, medical astrology, whatever we got to go over in regards to how it is impacting you and how these transits are impacting your chart. An hour-long session with me right now is $35. A 90-minute session with me is $50. Everybody is getting new client pricing until the end of the year. And a quick little note, if you didn't watch the full moon and Taurus video, those that take part in my weekly Zooms that I do for free for everybody, those have been temporarily canceled until the foreseeable future. And I explained that at the closing of the full moon in Taurus video. Okay, moving along. Let's get into this week. Let's get into the recap and how it's tying into the week. Got a lot of things going on. And whenever it comes to the elements of this week starts off feeling either very, very boastful or very, very confident or very, very anxious. Because there is an anxiety that is starting to set in. There's a couple reasons as to why. And there are also reasons why that it's one way for some people and not so negative for others. And I want to remind everybody about the 3 rules that I said at the beginning of October. And one, I am not living down. Oh my God. Rule number 1, things that we started at the beginning of the year, not everything that we started was meant to stick. Many things were going to get tested, and they did not make it through October, going into the first week of November. Rule number 2, the things that did stick since the beginning of the year, they are about to be tested. They have a level up energy that's going into an imprint of volatility. So it's like we have the abilities right now to be over promising and under delivering in a lot of ways. And if you over promise right now, it is going to come back and bite you in the ass as we continue throughout the rest of the year. I keep warning you of that. And I know somebody's going to have the nerve to be surprised. Rule number 3, because it keeps coming up again, and I have to keep saying this, and I keep sending the link over, so I'm just going to say it again in this episode. We are not in good energy to go into new relationships. And that literally started right after the Libra eclipse at the beginning of October. Because whenever we had that Libra eclipse, we also had Mars enter shadow. And I explained this in detail in that video, but I'm just going to do a quick little recap. I've already done this for you guys. I've lived through it. I've dealt with it. And now I'm literally teaching the lessons from it. When you get into relationships during a Mars retrograde, the volatility imprint stays in the relationship. I got with my ex-husband, I got married, and I got divorced, all simultaneous to Mars retrogrades. Trust me, I've already done it for you. Learn from my mistakes. Okay. Okay. There's the recap of the rules. Now, rule number 1 is why so many people are having anxiety right now. Some of the things that we did start earlier this year have not stuck. And what we've been dealing with over the course of the month of November is trying to find solutions, trying to work something out, trying to get a few kinks put together. But again, based off of last week's energy, and I'll get to that here in a minute, but just the full aspects of why here in a minute. Based off last week's energy, roles, responsibilities have changed. And some of the people that made previous commitments are not willing to stick to them. And while Saturn was stationing all through the last few weeks of October and all through the first few weeks of November, flip, click, click, cut. Certain cords were getting cut. I'm not going to be responsible for this anymore. I'm not going to be able to help you anymore. I don't want to help you anymore. I don't want to be in charge anymore. I'm walking away. And there's been a vibration around shifts in responsibility. And I'll come back to that here in a minute. And parts of this week, the anxiety will pick up more and more for a lot of people, because we're going to make these grasping at straw efforts to understand something, to make something happen, to make something commit, or someone to commit to something. And when I say commitment, I don't just mean relationships. Sometimes y'all are doing business deals. Some of you are doing stuff with your doctors. Some of you guys are doing stuff in school and with your teachers. Like, it's all very, very different. But we're going to try to make a commitment of some sort happen right at the beginning of the week. And that's going to be based off of Mercury's first opposition to Jupiter. The problem is Jupiter is retrograde. And one side of this dynamic is either not being truthful, not being clear, they are confused, something is not being understood. Now, some people will make commitments, but again, there's not something that is clear. And there's a reason for that. One of the other things that happens at the start of the week during the Mercury-Jupiter opposition is the trine between the Sun and Neptune. Y'all know how I feel about Neptune. He's kind of a dick. Sometimes that has to do with spirituality. A lot of times that has to do with lies, fraud, deception, confusion. There is something that is clouded based off Neptune's energy. There's something we ain't seeing clearly. Some people will make commitments, but then they won't stick to them later. That will make more sense when I do the Mercury retrograde video later this week. Just putting that little Easter egg out there. I've already warned that it's coming this week, but I wanted to get through these shadow transits to connect dots for people. So Mercury opposite Jupiter is the next shadow dot that we needed. And that's, again, how we're starting the week. Now, as the week progresses, we're going to get some type of dynamic, some type of result, some type of situation that literally by the time we get to the end of the week, many of us, our heads will be spinning. We'll be trying to understand something. We will try to put something back in order. We're going to be trying to make some type of arrangement. We are going to be trying to make some kind of plan that, again, in many ways, for many people, will very likely not stick. I'm warning you of that. Vice versa. Rule number 2, going back to that rule. I'm not really going to recap rule number 3, but 1 and 2 I needed to bring back into the forefront for people to understand now. There are some people that are making meetings this week happen that there is an overconfidence in the situation. There is an overconfidence. And your overconfidence, due to Mercury's inflated ego going through Sagittarius, making that opposition to Jupiter, it's like your overconfidence does not do well with my level of experience. You don't know what you're talking about. You don't know what you're doing. You're going to mess something up. Some of you are going to, again, have situations where we overpromise, oh, it's going to happen. I'm going to make everything going to be great. It's going to be so awesome. Just trust me on this. I don't know about trusting you right now. Because again, we can understand and sense, many of us will sense that there's something that's not clear, something that's not been completely understood. There's some part of the dots that are not connected. Because again, when Mercury hits that opposition to Jupiter, it will be coincided with a trine between the Sun and Neptune, clouding judgment, clouding our ideas, clouding what we're commencing through. And given the condition of Mercury all throughout the week, because every day this week, Mercury is slowing down. And the way that we will start next week, not this week, but next week, Monday, next week, it'll be the start of the Mercury retrograde. Every day this week is winding us into the start of the Mercury retrograde. Overconfidence can have issues. Being too direct and abrasive can have issues. The conversations that we have, the meetings that we have, the situations that we get into at the start of the week, some of them are going to quickly be tested. Some of them will not stick. Some of you will be going into meetings again with an investor, with an authority figure, with a doctor, with a guru, with a teacher, with one mindset. And for many people, by the end of the week and or by the beginning of next week, the opinion that we have will not be the same. Something will change. The awareness of something will change. And we're going into the more tested volatility imprint of the rest of the year, making certain decisions and sliding things into place for that part of the energy all of this week. Now, some of us are ready for that. Some of us are ready for this new role, this new responsibility. Some of us are ready to take something to the next level, going now to, again, rule number 2. Some of us are ready. We're ready to take something to the next level. We are doing our diligence, recognizing the pattern, making smart decisions, not jumping the gun, and we're moving slowly. For some people, slow is better in this energy. The problem is not a lot of people want to move slow. They want to go quick like rabbit, not slow like turtle. They want to hop. They want to jump. They want to run. They want to leap. Levels of leaping. We can't necessarily do that. Now, there's a lot of awareness towards, again, responsibility shifts that really came through last week. And I said I would come back to this. And there are 3 reasons as to why. The first one is how we started last week. Venus went into Capricorn. And there was this desire to do something more productive, to understand the root of situations, to make something happen in a certain way. And that was how we started the week. By the end of the week, we had a full moon in Taurus, a full moon hosted by Venus, while Saturn, the ruler of Capricorn, where Venus is at, was also turning direct. Authority changes, responsibility shifts. Who's going to be working on what? Who is doing what? Who's in charge of this plan? Who's in charge of this direction? Who's working in this area? A focus towards being more productive, being more serious, did take shape last week. And it is still an imprint of how we're going into this week. That shift in responsibility that could have come through last week could leave people scrambling this week to find temporary coverage in your job, temporary replacement in regards to the boss, something shifting around our elders. Who's going to be responsible for who? Who's taking grandma to her appointments? Who's taking grandpa to see the doctor next week? Who's doing the grocery shopping? Who's taking care of the kids? Responsibilities shifted. That shift in responsibility is also playing an impact into this week. This week that we're going into. When I was meditating on these transits, I felt a very big mental energy shift for a lot of people, that for a lot of people is going to feel like a bit of a roller coaster this week. We start the week with the moon in Gemini, wrapping up Gemini, because the moon was actually in Gemini all weekend going into Monday the 18th. But we will end the week with the moon in Virgo. And whenever we end the week with the moon in Virgo, Mercury, of course, will be stationing, because next week, Monday, he's going retrograde. And as we roll through the energy of this week, the mental energy, the confusion, the confidence, the overconfidence, the frustration, the boastful, running our mouth a little too much, because I said when Mercury's in Sag, people are going to start to lose their filter, and the longer it's there, the more we lose the filter. Speaking their version of a truth, but now so many people are speaking boastful voices of a truth that not everybody knows what is true, what is real. So they're starting to fall back. They're starting to be a little more silent. They're not quick to react. There's a hesitancy in the air. We're not necessarily going to always know fact from fiction over the weeks ahead. And you can feel part of that this week. And as people say certain things, our internal side will pump the brakes. As we say certain things to other people, their internal energy will pump the brakes. And you can see that in people when they respond that way. You can see the hesitancy come across their face. You can see the, oh, fuck no, I'm not doing that. No, no, no. No, thank you. Bye. I'm going to go in this direction. And there will be, for a lot of people, a sudden shift in plan that can take shape by the end of this week, going into the start of next week. We're not worried about next week quite yet. We're worried about this week. So let's get into the week. Let's get into transits. Let's get into Monday. Okay. Monday, November 18th. And I've got this going between 2:30 and 3:30 in the morning as the start of this transit. Now, why do I have that at this time? Because of what is taking shape. And we have two things that are going to happen simultaneously within this hour. At 2:50 a.m. Central Standard Time, the moon is going to go into Cancer simultaneously between 2:41 and 3:07 a.m. So I got this at 2:30. I'm just going to have bump it to 3:30. Mercury will hit its exact opposition to Jupiter. Now, the human effect is here, at least in the central time zone, this is happening in the middle of the night. Now, if you are in other countries, pay attention to how this is impacting your individual time zone. But for a lot of people, the human effect is whatever happens with this Mercury-Jupiter opposition, it is either a part of Sunday night's energy or it's going to be taking shape throughout the day on Monday. And there are different reasons as to why I say this. Now, the other thing that happened late Sunday night that is also, I feel like, playing an effect into this is right before midnight, Sunday night, there was a square between Neptune and the moon. And I'm only bringing this back up because all day long, or not only are we in the Mercury-Jupiter opposition, but we are also building the Sun-Neptune opposition. It will not go exact until the evening time, but it's still at play all day long. There could be a cloudiness, things not necessarily connecting, people not necessarily understanding, trying to make somebody understand something from the past, something that has already occurred. But it doesn't matter like how much you break it down, it's just not clicking for a lot of people. So don't be surprised if we have these waves of confusion that take shape throughout Monday. And do not be surprised by the emotional responses because of the reflectiveness of the moon going through Cancer. This is exactly how we're starting the week. Now, Mercury's opposition to Jupiter, because this is the first of three, and I personally think that the third one is going to be the most impactful given the way it's going to happen, and that's not happening till closer to Christmas. There's again going to be something that we can be communicating, something that we are offering, something that we are trying to understand based off past situations, because again, Jupiter's already been in this area of the sky. He was in this area of the sky over the course of early September and August. Just to be clear, we're going over an area of the sky where he's already been. We are trying to bring someone else up to speed, give them an idea and understanding of something that has already occurred because again, Mercury and Jupiter are in mutual reception. They do understand each other. And there is something that needs to be understood in this vibration. We're going to try, but even if we are understanding of something, there can still be a hesitancy given everything else at play. Okay. Moving this along. Keep this going as we go throughout the day. In the late afternoon, going into early evening, we are going to hit this opposition between the moon and Venus. Now, Venus is newly in Capricorn. Literally 1 week ago, Venus entered Capricorn. We can have something about the recent role change. We can have something that goes back to whatever was going on throughout the full moon. It's something about the moon being in this emotional state, being in Cancer, being reflective, professing certain things, talking about certain things that have just impacted it. And again, we just had a full moon in Venus's sign. A lot of the late afternoon and evening time can literally be like expressing and telling someone that we care about what has changed over the course of the last week and a half. I'm saying week and a half loosely, really the last week, but week and a half, we'll go with that. Because of Mercury's entry into Capricorn, because of Saturn turning direct, because of the full moon in Taurus, there was so much of the vibration over the weekend that was the unexpected thing, that the unexpected energy can still have an emotional effect that's starting to play into the new week. And we're talking with somebody else and getting their perspective, hearing the way that they would handle it, hearing their situation, what they're working on. And some things can feel really one-sided whenever it comes to the Moon-Venus opposition. Something over here can appear like it's going really, really well and really, really strong, where the other side doesn't feel that way at all. And again, the little tips and scales can make us concerned about the appearance of something or the lack thereof. So be aware of people that are kind of in their feelings on Monday afternoon and Monday evening, because it's not going to be an easy energy. And considering, again, all day we are working towards the exact trine between the Sun and Neptune, we can still have elements of confusion, questioning of our faith, questioning of our beliefs, questioning of what's real, of what's true. As this progresses, how can this be possible? Be aware of that. The Sun's exact trine to Neptune will happen between 7:46 p.m. and 8:09 p.m. Central Standard Time. So I got this at 7:30. It's right at the start of it. Here's the Sun, 27 degrees, 12 minutes. Here's Neptune, 27:13. It's close enough for government work. You guys can see it just fine. And there can be these things that like capture our imagination in the moment. We hear something about a past situation that we had no clue about. Again, we can be seeing the appearance of a scale that is tipped in one direction more so than the other. We can hope to turn something around. The reason I'm saying that in specific is because this is the Sun's trine to Neptune. And over the course of the next few weeks, Neptune will be stationing to turn direct. He's not going off of this 27-degree mark. So we can also be talking about, I hope this works out. Say the meeting earlier in the morning with the Mercury-Jupiter opposition. Like, I hope I hear from them soon. I hope this works out. I hope we can make this happen. I hope they'll take the deal. I hope. There can be hope in this vibration. And I get that. Okay, moving along. After this exact trine between the Sun and Neptune, there's nothing else going on Monday. A lot of the bigger transits are a part of the vibration for the entire day. So the human effect is like this can take place at any time throughout the day. I'm keeping everybody in the loop on that. And now we're going to get into Tuesday. We're getting into the 19th. Now the moon is going to be in Cancer all day long. And as soon as we get into the 19th, so right after midnight, at least for my time zone, what we're going to be experiencing is Saturn, newly direct, making a trine to the moon. Water flows, understanding certain things. considering part of the evening the day before the moon hit that opposition to Venus in Saturn's sign, and now the moon's hitting a trine from Saturn. We could have been expressing a desire to someone about the appearance of something, looking at what they're working on, asking for their help. And there can be confirmation of aid in a small extent, or a permission based off of Saturn being, rules and laws and the authority figure. There can be like a late night permission that sets in somewhere between Monday evening or an early morning permission, so to speak, authority aspect of Saturn now, in regards to how we're starting Tuesday. But what I keep hearing right now is the word permission. Access granted in some ways, but then there can also be like direction of, I think I can help you in this way. If you would hear me out in this idea, I got a proposal for you. Counter proposal, that type of thing. Okay, moving along. Saturn's trine to the moon is going to be felt between 12 a.m. and 2 a.m. Central Standard Time. Remember, we are still in the Sun-Neptune vibration. So again, we could be hearing something, getting some type of news, or getting some type of guidance or permission, like I said, with the Saturn moon. But then there's still an element of confusion of like, well, that's a really good idea, but how do I make it work? How do I even make that happen? How does that even go through? And again, we can have elements of confusion. It takes time to troubleshoot. Overconfidence can be the death of some people. Make sure we're doing the things that keep us humble. Okay. Moving along. Now, what's interesting about the 18th and the 19th, and I didn't bring this up on the 18th because I wanted to focus more on the 19th and 20th, is that we're building and wrapping something up simultaneously. And that has to do with Pluto. On the 19th, this is when Pluto is going to enter Aquarius. And that's the next thing that's going to happen. And this is actually going to go exact at 2:40 p.m. Central Standard Time. So I'm going to bump this to 3:30. And here we are. Boom. 3:30, 0 degrees, 0 minutes. Pluto is back in Aquarius. We're now in the start of the 20-year cycle. The last 2 years, we've had waves of certain things, shifting things into place, letting us know where we're going to be starting to focus on something moving forward. And now we have the actual arrival of Pluto into Aquarius. What's interesting about the Pluto in Aquarius right here is the only transit that is happening during this arrival, Sun separation to Neptune, but it was exact the night before. What we do have during this time, though, is the moon going through an in conjunction with Mercury, of either somebody discovering something and it immediately rubs them the wrong way. They're hearing about something they do not agree with. They're reflecting on something that they would never have done, or they are becoming aware of something that they didn't know was going on. When the moon goes through the in conjunction, the quincunx to Mercury, there's some extra element, an extra result of something that has already occurred, a meeting that has already occurred that the other side did not know was happening. Beyond that, though, in the immediate aspect of Pluto going into Aquarius, I don't know that everybody is going to have a physical event that's tied to this immediately. For a lot more people, I think it can be internal, an internal awareness, an internal shift, an internal, like, I want to say boost in confidence, but like it's more like the weight of something is lifted now that Pluto is in Aquarius. There's a weight that is lifting. Because the one thing that we've all talked about before is that when Pluto went back into Capricorn, the weight of that energy was so mind-boggling. After 7-8 months of Pluto and Aquarius, last spring and summer, we went back into that in the fall. Like, oh my God, forgot how heavy this is. I forgot how it felt. But some of us, whenever we get through the 19th, we will have an internal shift of something that does not feel so heavy. But the external parts around it, I don't know that they're going to happen immediately. In one way, we can have something that happens in the evening time, but not so much right when it happens. So if you're a journaler or you're a meditative person, if you could actually like set aside time on Tuesday afternoon going into the evening just to meditate on it or to journal like what comes through the flood of thoughts, ideas, what happens during that time, I would be very interested to hear from some of you guys what that mental and intuitive shift feels like to you. Moving along. The reason I said that there might be something in the evening time that has some level of aspect to it is because between 10 p.m. and midnight, so I got this at 10:30, Uranus, the modern ruler of Aquarius, is going to make a sextile to the moon. And there can be some things that come through unexpectedly in the evening time on Tuesday. An unexpected idea, some unexpected communication, but it's not something that's completely being addressed at that moment, but it might be where we have a reflective conversation with somebody, where we put something out there with somebody in some sort of way, given that, again, Uranus is now hosting Pluto. But I feel like more people, whenever it comes to Pluto's vibration, are going to be dealing with something on Wednesday, on the 20th, than on the 19th. But if you're really in tune with the energies and you're sensitive to the energies, meditate, journal, whatever you need to do Tuesday evening to document some of those shifts. And if you've been journaling for a long time, also compare how you feel this day to whatever you were notating back in January, specifically around January 19th and 20th, because that was the last time Pluto moved into 0 degrees of Aquarius. Okay, moving along. We're keeping this going. We're going to get into Wednesday. And the moon's only going to be in Cancer for so long. It's going to be in Cancer in the overnight hours. We're going to get this into between 1:30 and 3:30 a.m. Central Standard Time. Neptune, still in the trine with the sun, is going to hit a trine to the moon. So I'm actually going to bump this to about 4:30 because this kind of encapsulates both sides. We get this grand trine effect. The sun was in a trine to Neptune all day on Monday. And if you try to communicate something in the Mercury-Jupiter opposition, if you were trying to communicate something at that time that was not being spoken through clearly, some people are going to come to a decision between Wednesday, Thursday, and Friday about what's not clear, whether they are going to do something or not. Some people will be doing something, but what they're going to do is not going to be clear to the other side. Some people will not do something because whoever tried to pitch the idea, whatever was being talked about, was not clear. And that's going off of just like the idea of the mundane aspects of the transits. For other people, this can have to do with lies. This can have to do with fraud. This can have to do with treatments, going off of medical astrology now. And this can have to do with vices, something that we weren't doing before, but it's like we started doing it because everything felt so heavy. And now we're trying to understand why we were triggered into something, why we went back and did something in a certain way. And we need the support and the understanding of others, the care of others to overcome something and to let something go. And there will be another vibration as we continue over the next few days to get over something and let something go once the moon goes into Leo. And I'll explain that a little bit more here in just a second. The trine between the Neptune and the moon is going to be between 1:30 and 3:30 a.m. The exact span of the trine between the sun and the moon is going to be between 4:30 and 6:30 a.m. That's why I just put this right here in the middle. In the overnight hours, for those of us here in the States that are going to be sleeping during this time or trying to sleep during this time, some people are not going to be able to sleep. Some people are going to have certain effects that are going to impact the body. And again, they're not going to be sleeping because they're going to be worried about something else. There's going to be something that they need to take care of quite literally in the middle of the night. Or the dream energy is going to be so freaking intense that you never get into the deeper levels. It's just the constant images running through, whether you remember or not the next day, doesn't matter. It's like this is running all night long. Okay, moving along. At 7:51 a.m. Central Standard Time, the moon is going to go into Leo. I'm bumping this to 8:30 only because I keep this going on the hour breaks. And as soon as the moon hits Leo, it immediately starts its opposition to Pluto. That first opposition to Pluto. Now, what I said is like the arrival of Pluto into Aquarius for a lot more people on Tuesday is going to be internal. But when we get to the 20th, there can be something external about it. And this is the external marker, this one and what's going to happen later in the afternoon. So this is the first one. Pluto's now in Aquarius. We are at the start of a new cycle, a 20-year cycle tied to Pluto in Aquarius. And we are making someone else aware that we are starting something. We are addressing something with the other side. We are bringing attention to someone else when the moon hits the opposition. This is what I'm doing now. This is how I'm going to do something now. This is what I am going to be moving forward with. Now, one of the things that I want to remind everybody about is some of the stuff we start in November is going to stick, and some of the stuff is not going to stick. If it is tied to Pluto, it's more likely to stick. So be aware of what starts to transition between Tuesday into Wednesday, because Pluto ain't going back anymore. We're here now. And there can be an addressing to the other side. And some people might not like that. Now, the thing about once the moon goes into Leo is the entirety of moon in Leo is also the final days of the sun and Mars in mutual reception. They've been in a house swap since the beginning of the month whenever Mars entered Leo. Mars is starting to slow down. Mars is turning stagnant. Mars is not moving much. Something that we've been working on, something that we've been trying to do has not had a lot of movement per se. And another side can be feeling very restless. And again, we can have something that's in the vibration that's coming to a close throughout the rest of the week. And it's like a simultaneous energy, like we're aware of something coming to a close while also focusing on something new. We're finishing a project that we're going to launch. We're wrapping some kind of details up so we can send the package. We know we're ending something and simultaneously transferring it into another situation, transferring the power, sending the box. There's a shift once the moon goes into Leo. And a lot of people can be very restless and very frustrated based off of that. There's a restlessness in the energy. And the longer this week's progressive, we're going to feel more of the aggression, more of the anxiousness, more of the frustration, more of the popping off energy. Okay. Now, here is the moon's opposition to Pluto. Again, we're going to feel that the most exact between 7:30 a.m. and 9:30 a.m. Central Standard Time. 7:51, that is whenever the moon goes into Leo. And we have something that is very much in our focus over the next few days as to what we need to wrap up. And in some ways, there is something during this time span that will get revealed based off what's getting wrapped up. Now, why do I say that? Because I'm going to keep this going now. Between 3:30 and 5:30 p.m. Central Standard Time, the moon will make a conjunction to Mars. This is the first moon-Mars conjunction since Mars changed signs. A month ago, when they had their conjunction, it was in Cancer. It wasn't here. There's something that we're trying to get going. There's something that we're wanting to do. There is an arrival. There is news. There is a decision. There is a completion. Why do I say that? Because again, the sun hosting the moon and Mars in their little conjunction right here is now at 29 degrees of Scorpio. He's wrapping something up. He's wrapping up his visit through this sign. So we have something that's about to transition And in some ways, we're good with it at the moment. We feel ready at the moment. And for some people, this is going to have a lot of intensity to it. But for other people, the intensity is not going to be an excitement. It's going to be a frustration. It's going to lead to completions. It's going to lead to some popping off. Keep saying that. The moon in Leo is going to be real interesting this go round. Okay. We feel the moon Mars conjunction between 3 and 5:30 p.m. Central Standard Time. This is disruptive. This is chaotic. It reactivates elements of the Mars Pluto opposition that did happen earlier in the month. It reactivates part of it, but it's also activating the awareness of what's going to happen in the next Mars Pluto opposition, which is going to be at the start of January. So there are layers and levels to what we are dealing with whenever the moon goes into Leo. Okay, moving along. After this, there are no more direct transits to the day, but this really sets the vibration. I think there's going to be a lot of high energy when it comes to the 20th. I think a lot of people are going to have some things that are coming out that are going to potentially rub some people the wrong way, and there will be some frustrations as we go into Thursday. So there is your warning about that. I'm going to get this to 6:30. Yeah. What's interesting in the overnight hours is there is a quincunx again with the moon. And I don't always put emphasis on the quincunxes, except for the fact that what we've dealt with over the last week with that full moon in Taurus, Saturn turning direct, and Venus going into Saturn sign, like adding all those together, there's going to be some, again, shifts in responsibility that have now impacted the frozen energy of Mars, but that shift in power based off Pluto. And I will talk a little bit more about Pluto whenever we get into the closing. I was saving him for the closing, just to be clear. Now, there can be something about, again, Thursday, that we're wrapping something up that another person doesn't have a clue about. They don't know what I'm doing. They don't know what I've been working on. They don't know what I've been dealing with. They're not responsible for this. Or, in a lot of ways, I don't want them to know because none of their freaking business, like that type of thing. Just to be clear, there's something here about like, I know what I'm working on. It has nothing to do with them. It has to do with what I'm focused on and what's best for me, what's best for my desires, what's best for my ego, my notoriety, my name. I'm talking about with the elements of now of the moon being in Leo. There's a lot more pride and confidence. And some people are going to literally know by the end of the week that something is flat out coming to a close and there's no fixing it. So we have to transfer a whole different mentality into something else. Or we are wrapping up a project to launch, to debut. And again, the other people don't know what's coming because they had nothing to do with it. That doesn't mean it's a bad thing. For some people, it's going to be good. Launch project. For other people, it's going to be like, I don't know what the hell to do. Nobody wants to take responsibility. Nobody wants to help. Nobody will do their diligence. I'm kind of stuck. And we can have a mix of both in the vibration. And you can technically have both going on simultaneously. You're super proud that you're getting this thing worked on and you're about ready to wrap it up. But at the same time, you already know that as soon as your mom hears about it, as soon as your dad hears about it, your brother, your boss, somebody else, that they are going to be a dick no matter what. Just making that aware. Okay. Oh, I bring that up with the moon going through the quincunxes because it's one of the final things that happens while the sun is wrapping up its trip through Scorpio. At 1:57 p.m. Central Standard Time, so I'm going to bump this to 2:30, the sun goes into Sagittarius. And as soon as the sun goes into Sagittarius, it immediately starts the sextile to Pluto. Pluto has changed signs. The sun has changed signs. They're in a positive aspect to one another. They're in a positive reception to one another. And if somebody did have a meeting earlier in the week during the Mercury-Jupiter opposition that didn't have an immediate response, there was a hesitancy, somebody needed time to think about something. Between Pluto's going into Aquarius and the sun going into Jupiter, we are going to be more aware of whatever that vibration is, whatever that frustration is, whatever the outcome is. And some will feel very confident. Others will be riddled with fear. I'm not even going to lie about that. There's going to be elements towards both positive and negative whenever it comes to either taking back personal power or dealing with the power struggle. We become very, very aware of it somewhere between Wednesday, Thursday, Friday. This one right here feels the most intense whenever it comes to either the elements of a power struggle or the elements of fear. And again, I will put more emphasis on Pluto in the closing. Okay, going along. The exact sextile between the sun and Pluto happened between 2:45 and 3:07 p.m. Central Standard Time. So at 2:30, I'm like right before it starts, but it's close enough for government work. You guys are fine. Bumping this along. We get into the evening time, and between 5:30 and 7:30 p.m. Oh, I went too far. There we go. Go at 7:30. Jupiter is going to make a sextile to the moon. But the sun just arrived in Sagittarius. The moon is being hosted by the sun. So the sun just arrived in Jupiter's sign, and now there is this Jupiter-Sun sextile. Now Jupiter is retrograde. He's moving in a different direction. We can either be getting guidance in some way, Jupiter being the doctor, the guru, the teacher, of a past situation and how to move forward with it now. We can be getting told and made to understand that we will not have certain support, Jupiter retrograde, and that something else needs to go forward. Like you need to find another solution. You need to find another situation. Or again, the sun is now in Jupiter's sign. It's like, I understand what you did in the past. That idea will not work. I will help you, but you're going to have to do it my way. And again, we're at the start of Sagittarius season now. And if we're in a hectic situation, if we're in a stuck situation, sometimes there's no choice but to accept those terms. And again, with the sun being in the sextile to Pluto, there can be a dynamic towards a power struggle, towards fear. Making that clear. Okay. Moving this forward. In the evening time, and this is going to be something that happens between 11:30 p.m. Central Standard Time and 1:30 a.m. So this is one of those energies that takes us from one day to the other. It takes our awareness from one day to another. We have to come to terms. We have to understand that something is about to change. Mercury is stationing the sun. Well, the sun is newly in Sag, hosting the moon, and the moon is hitting the trine to Mercury. We are very aware that something has to change rather quickly. And there can be acceptance. There can be an understanding. There can be some type of communication, some kind of plan being spoken about, but it's all happening real late in the evening. And again, this is something that happens for some people late on Thursday evening. For more people, it's going to be a part of Friday morning. So I'm moving this now to Friday morning and making people aware that the human effect of this can be either time span, late Thursday, early Friday. And considering what else is going to be happening the early morning of Friday, I feel like some people can make a decision to do something a certain way Thursday evening, but they don't tell everybody else involved until Friday morning. Now we're getting into the Friday morning part. Oh, we got two things that are going to happen Friday morning. Actually, I went too far. Let's bump this backwards. First things first, at 5:54, between 5:54 and 6:13 a.m. Central Standard Time, Venus is going to have its exact sextile to Saturn. While this is commencing, while this is going on, Uranus is going to enter a square to the moon. Now that goes the most exact between 6:30 and 8:30 a.m. So I'm just going to bump this to 6:30. I'm going to leave it alone. Venus is in Saturn's sign. Again, we just had a full moon in Venus's sign. Saturn has just turned direct. We are very, very aware that we need to put something new into order. The appearance, the attention, the necessity needs to be put into order. Venus and Capricorn. We're having some type of feedback with the potential of a new superior, a new authority figure, somebody that we're not used to before. But again, with Saturn being in this area of the sky where he's already been, and he's kind of in a start over mode, it's like you've had somebody you've worked with in the past that you saw as an authority figure, but now you're either looking at the transfer of power and you're talking to a new authority figure about something that's already happened before, or you're talking with somebody that you've always respected, like an elder or somebody like that, about where we're at now. Let me catch you up with something. And for some people, this is going to have excitement. For some people, this is going to be an absolute shock to the system because Uranus is in the square to the moon. Uranus is now hosting a newly present Pluto, and they're going to be doing their stuff for the next 20 years. The arrival of something new, a new power dynamic, can be a shock wave to other people. And this is the most exact on Friday. Decisions and everything coming through Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, but for the shock to the system, in a lot of ways, it's coming through on Friday. But the human effect is Wednesday, Thursday, Friday. Let's be clear about that. Okay. Moving along. What's interesting to me is after the Uranus square to the moon is going to go void. So whatever vibration took us into Friday, whatever did happen on Wednesday and Thursday, once it is announced, once it comes through, once there is that breaking energy, once we are aware of the new thing, it sets the vibration and it sets the stage for the entire day on Friday. Some people are going to be good with it. Other people, not so much. Be aware of both. Okay. Oh, the sun, I'm sorry, not the sun. The moon is going to go void all day long. What's interesting though is while it's void, the sun is at that 0 degrees of Sagittarius. So it's just like we have this sudden new thing, but it's new. And it takes a big part of the day. And then we get into the evening time. Now at 5:01 p.m. Central Standard Time, the moon is going to go into Virgo. The moon is in Mercury's sign. And throughout the rest of the weekend, Mercury is stationing to start a retrograde that will happen on Monday. There will be things that require us going back to the drawing board. There will be things that start to require us to have a shift in momentum, have a shift in our plans, have a shift in our focus. It changes our opinion. There'll be triggers with other people that changes our opinion throughout the week. And by the time we get to the weekend, the mental unrest, the mental anxiety, the push and pull to get a lot of things done and put into order because we have so much new coming through is going to become very, very overwhelming. Especially since as soon as the moon goes into Virgo, it goes into our last quarter moon. So we have, here's the moon 0 degrees. We feel it the most exact between 6:30 and 8:30. So I'm going to bump this to 7:30. And now you can see here's the moon, 1 degree, 15 minutes. Here's the sun, 1 degree, 14 minutes. It's close enough for government work. There's the quarter moon, the last quarter moon. And we are in a wind down energy. And if Mercury was not stationing in such a difficult place, I wouldn't say the anxiety quite the way that I am. But I feel like we have some type of news, some type of vibration that comes throughout the week, that once we get to the weekend, We either have to deep dive and understand every little thing about the symptom, every little thing about the decision, every little thing about the new company, every little thing about the new boss. I'm going to go through their social media. I'm going to Google them. I'm going to do a background search. You can do a background search. Absolutely, you can do a background search. More people should do them. That type of thing. Okay, moving along. Oh, the amount of anxiety and mental frustration is going to be very interesting next weekend. Oh, now we're going to get into Saturday. And honestly, there's not a whole lot of direct transits to Saturday until we get into the evening time. So I'm just bumping this to the evening time. But we still have the moon in Virgo the entire time. So again, the potential of anxiety, the potential of frustration, the potential of needing to understand something, the potential of trying to get some things put into order. And whenever we get to Saturday evening, the moon is going to hit that opposition to Saturn, the first opposition to Saturn, now that Saturn is direct. Getting some type of word, making some type of decision, hearing something about our elders with our elder, talking to somebody that we respect, we see them as an authority figure, even if they're not our authority figure directly. It's like they're an authority figure in their field. So getting their perspective is something that we take very seriously. It's seeing something about the authority figure, recognizing something about them. Again, our heads are spinning and there's the potential of like, we're going to do a background check and I'm going to go through every form of social media and I'm going to read every article about this new boss, about this new place, about this new situation. I'm going to put all these things in order and I'm going to start sending them to the new boss so they can be prepared for what we need to do when we get to work on Monday. There is something that is shifting, informationally shifting, communication shifting all weekend. And there's a lot of busyness and a lot of spinning and a lot of frustration and a lot of anxiety. And I'm not sugarcoating a damn thing. Moving along. When we get to the evening time, later in the evening time, between 9:30 and 11:30 p.m., so I'm bumping this to 10:30, the moon is going to make a trine to Venus. The appearance of something, feeling like we've got something handled, feeling like we've got something settled, talking about how fair something can be or how unfair something can be, getting some type of hope, feeling some level of a benefit in a lot of different ways. But there is something that needs to be productively understood and presented or prepared. And I feel like for a lot more people, there's prep. It's prep. It's getting all of our ducks in a row, getting all of our documents in order, or talking to somebody about all of the production that we've been able to do, or having everything put into order. Somebody coming home and be like, oh my God, it looks great in here. I haven't seen your office put together in so long, but I'm like, stack, 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 stack. You did such a good job. You're ready to go. Yeah, I'm going in with like, a full file cabinet worth of stuff on Monday, but I'll be ready to go. Okay. That type of thing. We feel the moon's trine to Venus the most between 9:30 and 11:30 p.m. Central Standard Time. So you can see that right here. Saturday didn't have a whole lot going on. I feel like a lot more people are going to be stuck in their head. And that even goes the same when we get into Sunday. We get into the 24th. Now, our first transit that's going to hit on the 24th is going to happen between 4:30 and 6:30 a.m. Central Standard Time. So I got this at 5:30. And that is when Jupiter is going to hit its square to the moon. Jupiter's in Mercury's sign. The moon is in Mercury's sign. Mercury is spinning. Sometimes we can think ourselves into the worst thing possible. We go down the nth degree, the rabbit hole over and over and over again, and we ask for somebody else's perspective. And when we hear something, like we don't initially agree with it, or we wake up the next morning with Jupiter square to the moon, and we see some type of message or some type of email that triggers another memory of something else we need to do, something else we need to put into order, something else we need to understand. Jupiter's square to the moon. And you can see that again right here. And there can be something about Sunday that reactivates the vibration of what we were dealing with Monday, earlier in the week, during the Mercury Jupiter opposition. Another reason why I'm saying that is as the day progresses, between 1 and 3 p.m. Central Standard Time. So I'm going to get this to 1:30. The moon in Virgo, in Mercury sign, is going to then make a square to Mercury in Jupiter sign. So much of the next 2 months is going to be very, very heavy about what Jupiter and Mercury rule in your charts, about these mutable signs. And I feel really bad for the mutable placements, because there's so much of this energy and so much of this vibration that is going to have people very, very shaky. But it's because there's so much energy, not shaky in the sense of like, I'm so scared. It's more along the lines of like, there's so much going on and I don't know what to do with my energy. I know. I'm sorry. I know you don't know what to do with your energy. The longer the vibration happens, the harder it is to do something with the energy. So, this one right here, the moon is in the higher authority. Mercury is stationing. We could be asking something of someone else, talking to somebody about something else, and them not knowing how to respond, not knowing how to act. Or they're just saying that to another person going, I really need your help right now because I don't know what I'm doing. I feel lost. And I'm only saying that because Mercury is stationing. I wouldn't normally have to say that. But the vibration around this Mercury retrograde is very, very intense. And again, I will do a Mercury retrograde video later this week. I want us to get through Mercury Jupiter before I do this one. Okay. But there is something right here that can be said that can have frustration and arguments, because right now Mercury is just waiting on the right trigger to set him in motion, to turn him around. Somebody can say or do something that triggers something in the Mercury moon square. They wouldn't even be intentional about it. But it's like saying something to someone that, again, can potentially change their opinion. It might not happen in the immediate at this right full second, but it can happen over the next 24 hours. You say something to someone, it kind of rubs them the wrong way, but at the same time, you're not wrong. They just need time to stew. They need time to think. They need time to work themselves out to get to that perspective. Okay. Now continue this forward. We got one more transit to Sunday, and it's going to happen Sunday evening. And this is going to happen the most exact between 6 and 8 p.m. Central Standard Time. So I got this at 6:30. Sorry, guys. And what we have is a trine between Uranus and the moon. Let me grab a drink. Okay. Trines, again, they're triangles. This is one part of a triangle. The productivity, the actions, the desires of something that we are trying to put together, communicating the recent unexpected changes. Remember, Uranus is now hosting Pluto. So it's like communicating to someone else, like, we've had so much happen this week that it's just blowing my mind. And we're getting some type of, again, feedback from another person, guidance from another person about things that have just occurred, that have recently occurred, or might not all be recent. The last time Uranus was at this area of the sky was back during the summertime. So for not everybody is it going to be recent. Some of the stuff will actually go back to some of the stuff that happened over the summer, especially now that Jupiter's getting closer to the 16 and 17 degree mark. And that, again, will be something that I discuss in the Mercury retrograde video. I'm not doing it all in this one. There's so much that's going to be in that Mercury retrograde video. I'm just making everybody aware of that. Okay. So let's get out of the charts and let's reflect on Pluto. Pluto's exalted in the sign of Aquarius. He actually does very, very well here. But whenever it comes to Aquarius itself, it is a reflection of masses. It is the reflection of people, the power of people. Now, for all of us, we will have something that individually shows up in our lives. And I would be very serious whenever I say reflect back to the last 2 times Pluto was in this area of the sky. Between March, April, May, June of 2023, we had Pluto at 0 degrees of Aquarius. Like he came in, peaky toe dip. This water ain't ready. I'm going back. He wasn't there for very long. Pluto was at 0 degrees of Aquarius from the last week and a half of January through the first 3 weeks of February of earlier this year. And then he was back in this area of the sky through the last 3 weeks of August during the last Mercury retrograde. Put a pin in that. Pay attention to that whenever we go to the Mercury retrograde video. Okay. You guys know me already. All right. The arrival of Pluto in Aquarius for a lot of people is going to be the announcement of something that is going to be a new power dynamic. And for some people, it will be a power struggle. It will be a frustration. It will be a weight of some sort. But it will also be how we can take back our personal power. And it really kind of comes down to how this is impacting your chart. If you have natal placements in some of these areas, especially the early areas of Aquarius, where your natal placement is, because for like the Pluto and Scorpio generation, this is the start of your Pluto square. And that's one of the transits that I refer to as either your midlife crisis or your midlife awakening transit. For other people, like it's the end of Pluto squares and it's going to start to go into like Pluto trines. Like it's a very interesting vibration to get into. And it's going to get louder whenever Pluto gets deeper into Aquarius. And there will be things that we are not willing to submit to. We're not going to be willing to bow down to. But then there will be others that we're going to be forced to. This will be the power struggle moving forward. You've been happy-go-lucky working for the little mom and pop store or business, but mom and pop had to retire. They made that announcement. And then they've signed the papers and they've transferred power. They've given something to someone else. Someone else has power in a situation. And it's not that mom and pop didn't love their job and love their employees. I'm just using this as an example. It's more along the lines of it was time to transfer power. And if they didn't have kids or somebody that wanted to buy it out in a more mom and pop situation to keep it that direction, then it comes into something more corporate, using this all again as an example. And now you go into a different power dynamic, and some people will be triggered by fear based off of this change because they're going into something with hopes that things will go well, but they don't immediately know how to respond to certain things. And there will be people that will start to buck the system throughout the rest of the year based off the other transits that are going to come through. And I'm telling you, go watch that Mercury retrograde video when it comes out later this week, because I will connect a lot more dots for people than I do in the weekly episodes. However, for other people, given that Pluto is exalted in Aquarius, it will be a set of decisions, the acceptance of certain responsibilities, the acceptance of certain notoriety that is then going to change their presence and their dynamic in how they are seen within their family, within society, within the world. Regardless of the house, Pluto is still going into a sign that has to do with society. And there are going to be some people that they are a part of a triggered change within people in both good and bad ways. And I do feel like a lot of people are going to have immediate situations in their mundane. But the big picture, real world stuff is there as well. And I've talked about this timeline ad nauseum since the beginning of the year, warning that we're going to go into volatile energy, warning that we're going into energy that people don't necessarily completely know what they're getting into, warning that whatever they start to step into next, is either going to be a very big uplift and upshift of this is who you are now, or it is going to show you where you are going to be struggling with something moving forward. And it's no matter what, good, bad, or ugly, it's that next cycle of our personal karma and how it's coming through. And again, this all comes down to how it's laid out in your chart, where your natal Pluto is. If you have other placements in the sign of Aquarius, and that's all stuff that I need to talk about with people in their individual readings. I'm not going to be able to do all of that on here. Some of you already know some of this stuff because we've talked about it already. Some of you are just, you're about to get into some stuff that you don't even necessarily understand. There is a dynamic shift, timeline shift, obstacle course vibration. It's not an easy shift. It's an obstacle course. I've been so clear about that. And now we're getting into a peak in the vibration that there's going to be so much new, so much that arrives that initially people are going to struggle to understand what's real and what's not, who's telling the truth and who isn't, what's fact and what isn't. And the problem is, for some people, the two truths are exactly that. They're both a version of the truth, and it's trying to find a middle road. And I do feel like part of this Mercury retrograde, not just the retrograde, but the rest of Mercury and Sag is going to be dealing with the confusion and trying to find a middle road. Some people are going into something this next week feeling very, very confident that they're going to get something going and it's going to be great. And you just got to wait and see. Yeah, hoorah, we're going to get it. Other people, the transfer of power, the transfer of authority, the new recognition, the new that is coming through is going to take us into a vibration that we are not familiar with, that is going to instigate a new round of a power struggle that some people will not stick to. They will buck the system. Are they going to do it all at once? Absolutely not. It will be some things that really start to take shape by the end of the year and going into the start of 2025. So much of what we're dealing with right now has been put into motion for quite some time. And so much of what we're going into is not going to be as new as people think it is. There will be some new. But sometimes we're going to be stuck in situations where we knew one devil, and now we're going into something with a devil we do not know. And we're not going to be able to immediately understand that devil until we get a little bit more into the mud. Okay. I love and appreciate every single one of you. Hit me up with questions. Hit me up with concerns. You can always hit the comments. Remember, my contact information is listed in the description of every single episode. And if you want to book a session with me, you should definitely hit me up on social media or email me. I will talk to everybody very, very soon. Subscribe.